Reports are coming out that Vladimir Putin may be the one who helped stop the conflict between the US and Iran. Vladimir Putin proposed to Donald Trump that they will play a major role in controlling the uranium production of Iran so that they don't go past the numbers that will bring them to nuclear weapons, as well as guaranteeing to the United States that Iran will not use its ballistic missile to attack the US and Iran. The US had requested that Iran sit at the table and negotiate the uranium production for their nuclear, and that they also put a cap on the number of ballistic missiles that they are producing. Iran say no, they're not going to discuss about their missile program. And when it comes to the nuclear energy and the enrichment of nuclear, they are simply civilian, right? That they are not interested in making a nuclear weapon. And so Vladimir Putin, being the great and big diplomat and major chess player that he is, he basically came out and negotiated with the Trump administration, telling them, look, we are ready to help in this. Now, this is not the reason why the US stopped, right? Obviously. Netanyahu is doing everything to get the US involved in this conflict. So they didn't stop because, Vladimir Putin had proposed something, because, they don't care. They know exactly that Iran doesn't care about making a nuclear weapon. They're not even more powerful without a nuclear weapon. And, just the very fact that the US and Israel are crying about their missile program, and keep in mind, this was not even on the table. After the whipping that they gave to Israel in June, Israel came out and realized, look, we have to cap the missile program. The reason why the US is pulling back from this madness is because they have realized that Iran can do some serious damage. In public, they are coming out and saying that they are not ready to bomb Iran. That is what they are saying. For those who are on the inside, are saying that diplomacy is playing a major role. Donald Trump has been saved by Vladimir Putin, right? Because they've been looking for a way out. Vladimir Putin coming in there and assuring them that, look, we can de-escalate, is giving the US a way out, an excuse for them to say, look, because diplomacy won on this one, we decided to leave it alone. It can remove some of the embarrassment, because all this time you've been telling us, oh, the beautiful armada is going in there, well, we are going to bomb Iran so hard. And then you come out and say, we're not ready. Come on, man. Why is the armada there if you're not ready? All your weapons are there. Everything you wanted is there, right? The most powerful weapon on earth is there. The most powerful country on earth is there. Well, show us power, right? It's an embarrassment, right? Donald Trump is figuring out a way to basically save himself from Netanyahu. He has until November, when the Democrats are going to beat the Republican pretty badly. Then he can tell Netanyahu, look, I don't have power to go to war anymore. I can't do this anymore. Because he's starting to realize that Obama, Bush, and Biden, all those people were actually right when they were telling Netanyahu, look, we don't want to get involved in Iran. He is learning the hard way that politicians make some decisions based on reality. Although they lie a lot, that's just how it is. And in other news, right, last week, the US dollar lost more of its value. For the past year now, the US dollar lost more than 10% of its value, right? Because I know we are all bogged down into this Iran situation. There are a lot of stuff happening that we are not talking about. The US dollar is in major trouble. And we are seeing that the allies, or you can call them the puppet of the United States, are breaking away from the US. After France, Canada, right? Now the United Kingdom went to beg China for trade. All of them are heading east. But when they go there, they tell you, well, we told China about human rights, right? When France went in there, they came back and told us that they went and told China to stop saturating their market with their goods. So China is selling too many stuff in France. And therefore, China needs to stop that. There needs to be a fair exchange, right? When in fact, France was going in there to beg that they want new deals with China. Yeah, but, on camera, they have to be tough. Canada went in there, they made it very clear why they were in there. They're like, look, we're having a hard time with the US. We want someone different. Mark Carney said clearly that, look, the relationship with China is more stable and predictable. The UK, Keir Starmer goes in there and he comes back talking about, yeah, we talked about human rights issue with China. We had to let them know human rights. When in fact, he went in there with a whole bunch of businessmen to go beg China for deals. It is extremely bad for Europe. Europe's economy is on the ground, right? They need help as soon as possible. The Ukraine conflict with Russia gave them a beating that they did not expect. They're trying to see how they can get back up, right? They don't even care about Ukraine anymore. Ukraine is just a disaster right now. So they are all heading to China to go beg China for deals, right? And then on TV, they try to act tough, right? In the meantime, the Ukraine conflict, Russia has been so effective in destroying Ukraine that even the mainstream media is now coming out and clearly saying that things are pretty bad for Ukraine. That if nothing happens, Ukraine will completely collapse. Zelensky is coming out now and saying, because they were supposed to have a meeting between Ukraine and Russia in Abu Dhabi to have a part 2 of the meeting they started last week. But that was postponed for, I believe, Wednesday. And Ukraine is now coming out and saying, look, if there are going to be any deals, he wants the Europeans to be at the table. Who is Zelensky to make these type of decisions? Donald Trump doesn't want them there, right? Putin doesn't want them on the table. And Zelensky, who has nothing to offer, who is losing every day, right? Who is miserable, whose people don't have electricity, are back in the Stone Age. Even when Russia is no longer bombing Ukraine, their energy continued to collapse by itself, right? Nature is fighting a war with Russia against Ukraine, right? Even with all of that, he still come out to try to give ultimatums. He wants Europeans at the table. You lost, man. And when you lost, you don't make ultimatums. Europe is trying to get back up by begging China. And you are talking about you want them at the table. Europe is not even talking about Ukraine anymore. When was the last time you heard them talking about Ukraine on the news? They are out looking out for themselves. Ever since Ukraine came after Europe, a lot of those Europeans are like, look, Donald Trump is dealing with us. And you, Ukraine, that we are helping, you are dealing with us as well. And so the message that Europe is sending to Zelensky right now is, look, you know what? You're on your own. And Zelensky is realizing that. And that's why he's coming by saying, oh, I want Europe at the table. Because Europe has given up. Ukraine right now, it's alone. And so the situation we have now, as we're heading toward in 2026, is that Donald Trump is in major trouble. The US dollar is losing its value. Donald Trump's scandals in the United States are growing, from the immigration, ISIS issues, the Epstein files, this conflict with Iran that brought back even more problem for Donald Trump, and the very fact that major loss in elections, local election in the US, is sending a message that Republicans are going to lose big time in November. So don't be surprised if he start to focus more on local issues and kind of get away from these international issues. His approval rating is the lowest any US president has ever had at this same time in their presidency. Keep in mind, he hasn't even been there a year and a half yet. And he's already one of the worst leaders in the United States. When it comes to Iran, when Donald Trump found out that he could not bomb Iran, he wanted to make a deal with Iran where they can just come up and shoot one movie where he can bomb a little bit and Iran can bomb a little bit and they can say, that's it. That is because Donald Trump was trying to save face. But even that, Iran said no. This is a major embarrassment for the US.